you and I have spoken in the past about strong concerns we have related to how the administration is prioritizing the allocation of grants. And you have large programs like infra and RAISE, nearly $1 billion each. I mentioned to you that I had actually written much of the amendment, had negotiated with other members the amendment that puts in law the right criteria for prioritization. So when the administration came out and said that racial equity, climate change, environmental justice, and enhancing union opportunities were going to be the driving factors, I had strong concerns because those are things that y'all are just deciding are priorities. They're not things that are actually in the law. And so then I said, okay, well, we'll wait and see how the grants are actually allocated and decide if this is a problem or not. Mr. Secretary, I remind you, I represent South Louisiana. We have one of the most at-risk states for sea rise. We have one of the highest African-American populations in the nation. We're at the bottom of the largest watershed, taking in runoff from Montana, New York, Canada, and everything that's in that water. And so I think if you go through and look at your criteria, we should be number 1, 2, and 3, really up there at the top. Yet when you allocated funds under the infra program, I think it was 15% of the money. 15% went to the state of California. You had about $555 million went to blue states, only $350 million went to red states. Under the RAISE program, $162 million went to bike and pedestrian paths. So I want to ask you a question. If you look at TomTom, the navigation company's assessment of congestion, most congested areas in America, they said that New York was number 1. They said that Los Angeles was number 2. They said that Miami was number 3. Do you have any idea what number 4 was or is?
I don't.
So that would be the metropolis of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which puts it ahead of Chicago and San Francisco and a number of other significantly larger places. 62 hours a year, time lost just sitting in traffic. No one would have expected that be the case. So if you look at the 2 grant programs, $1 billion each, you would think that with us being the state that should be performing at top under your criteria, top under the criteria that I wrote because I'm incredibly biased, yet we got 1 grant, and this is what it was. $18.5 million to improve fare collection for New Orleans Transit. It's kind of hard to understand, really hard to reconcile. I tried to get him to find a better snapshot on Google Map traffic, but it's normally dark red. This is the bridge. It's the only place in America where the interstate funnels down to a single lane. And it's not because we were innovative and came up with a great idea that nobody else could think of. It was idiotic, and proof is that we have 62 hours we sit around and waste in traffic. And here's the last slide is just a picture here showing the bridge that looks like a parking lot because people are just sitting there. This is I-10 connecting California to Florida. So I want to ask, how are you prioritizing, and how can projects like this not get funded when you're putting money toward bike trails, putting money toward, transit systems got $263 million under one of the programs, over a quarter of the funds, whenever we gave transit tens of billions of dollars during the COVID relief packages. The highways didn't get anything. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, what are we doing, and why aren't we putting money toward true national priorities that will relieve congestion, reduce emissions, improve time saved in traffic, and other things that I think we would share?
Well, our shared priorities, I think, are very well served by the things that we funded in the infra program and in the RAISE program. But I'll acknowledge that for every dollar we were able to give out, there were probably about 10 that applied. So we had a lot of worthy projects, many, I'm sure, from your district or your state and from all around the country, which qualified, but we were only able to work with the funding that we had. Of course, thanks to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we have more funding than before, which means we'll be able to say yes more often, and we love nothing more than saying yes to a good project or a good program. I think if we start ranking, how much is going to highways, we need to include the highway formula funds in that, right? Which is the bulk of the dollars that go to those purposes. And you have, of course, certain things like CMAQ that are, specifically by the very core of the program, directed toward congestion mitigation. Although there's no reason why that can't be a benefit coming off something like a RAISE grant or another piece of legislation. I will say, one of the things we tried to do is really make sure that these dollars in infra, for example, got around the country regardless of, certainly regardless of politics. And one thing we were proud of is I think there was a 25% floor for rural projects. We did almost double that. We were in the 40s on supporting rural communities. I know that for every project we were able to say yes to, there's several more that would be, folks would be disappointed we couldn't get there.
right.
But again, thanks to this interview.
Secretary, I'm out of time, and I
Say
appreciate
yes
you being
more
here and answering the questions. I look forward to following up with you on this, and I would like to ask, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, if you could please provide the committee with the metrics for how you have measured those 4 criteria that I mentioned, I would appreciate it.